We're here with Ashleigh Bachert, who just so happens to be my boss. So, Josh, we're going to be on our best behavior, right?
I will sure try.
Right?
You don't have to be, don't worry.
So, Ashleigh works at the Convention and Visitors Bureau as the executive director.
Yeah.
So why don't we just start out by you telling us a little bit about what you do?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. And one that probably shouldn't take nearly as long, so I'll try and keep it short. Honestly, I'm in the fun business is kind of what I like to say. The fun business.
We do have fun.
I want to be in that business.
We are in memory making. And at the end of the day, our job is to make sure that Fort Smith is a great backdrop for memories that are made by people that are here visiting, whether it be with your family or a work trip or a conference. Like, you always remember those, little moments in your life of like, I was there when that happened. And that's, for us, that's when you're doing it right. So I truly say I have one of the best jobs ever, because we get to do that part of it. And then on the other side of it is we work to make the economy and our community stronger. And it's people that you don't necessarily think about. It's the hotel staff. It's the housekeeping staff. It's your restaurant workers. I mean, those are the people that are truly impacted by the work that we do. So I love going through grocery stores or getting a chance to sit down in a restaurant and know that the work that we do in a team or whatever is in-house, that they're contributing to our economy and they're making that life better for that person. So when I say I have the best job, it truly is. It's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. So she said Convention and Visitors Bureau. A lot of people might say CVB, so those are the same thing. But what you guys go by something else, and it's new. It's relatively new.
It is, and I'm so excited. Emily had a huge part in this part, and we are rebranding underneath Discover Fort Smith. I always think it's interesting. You say CVB and eyes glass over.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was until I got this job.
Yeah, don't worry. Most people still don't know, even if you've been in the industry for a while. Like, we talk to people and they're like, what? We rebranded underneath Discover Fort Smith. And I feel like that's a better example of what we do. And it's really encouraging people to discover the city that we're in, and giving that call to action to visitors as well of like, hey, come in, discover us. It'll be fun. And it ties in well with the Old West that we have and our history and what's new and what's coming up. It really is a chance just to discover everything that we've had to offer through the years in our past and even into our future.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, we are so lucky to be in this industry because it is a lot of fun. And I mean, we basically get to be glorified cheerleaders for the city and all of the people who are working and living in the city. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
But I get stressed out and I'm like, why am I stressed about like this one little thing? And because it really is, at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm a glorified cheerleader. Like, all I get to do is just talk about how great our community is. Why am I stressed out about anything at this point? Like, I'm not saving lives. I'm not heart surgery, cancer. None of that's in my background. It truly is just, it's a dream come true.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the economy. And so that's something I had never thought about until I got this job was travel and how travel impacts cities. Can you talk a little bit about that and how tourism impacts Fort Smith and the people living here?
Yeah. So the economy is affected by travelers all the time. I think we saw it the most when COVID hit. And you've got places like New York and Los Angeles that smog's clearing, and that's partially due to residents, but then it's dead streets and it's nobody in ballparks. It's nobody in NBA games and they're going to visuals. And you think about it from that lens and you're like, oh, that's weird. Like, you don't have anybody in the stands, and that's a piece of it. But then you look at the other side and CVBs, destination marketing organizations, were shutting down because people aren't traveling. You had hotels that really were only open for disaster relief. COVID is one of those where it's like you really saw why it was so important, what the work that we do. You had restaurants that weren't able to sustain or be open or shuttered completely because it was missing the traveler. And that to me is like, okay, that is a pinpoint of, okay, now we understand why. But, for us, we're funded out of lodging tax. So we need people in the hotels to do our business. I always think it's important for listeners to understand, like, we're free. We are free labor on behalf of the city. The visitors paying for us to do the work that we do. And then on the flip side, every time someone comes in and it's a new dollar, they're spending and generating sales tax revenue, and they're benefiting our general fund of the city. So fire, police, roads, utilities, whatever you think of as being a city funded, the traveler's helping pay for it.
Yeah.
So if we don't have travelers, we as citizens and residents would have to turn around and pay more in taxes. And that's the piece that a lot of people don't understand, because you just take for granted the fact. And, we were just talking about, we're planning for, what's going on, and we're reviewing those plans as we're getting into January and into the new year, and researching others. You've got communities that are saving their residents $4,000+ a year in tax revenue. And we're still trying to figure out what our impact is here. But that's a huge saving to not put that tax burden on the resident, because you've got people outside that are willing to pay for it on our behalf.
Yeah.
And that's really where I think the community benefits the most, because they come in, spend their money, they have a lot of fun, they talk really great things about their experience, but then they leave.
Yeah.
But yet we get the really great infrastructure out of it.
So what are some things that you're doing to bring people into Fort Smith?
Yeah. So, Emily's a big piece of this on the marketing side, and having her partnering with others. So making sure that we're doing, advertising, digital, our strong social media, really inspiring that travel, showcasing what there is to do here, promoting events that are happening. How often do you guys travel, or listeners are traveling and saying, hey, I'm traveling for X, Y, and Z event. I'm a sports person. I travel for NCAA men's basketball Final Four, but it's in Vegas. So what else am I going to do? So, we're promoting those events knowing that there's that ongoing spending pattern. We have a sales team, and their whole job is to attract people in. And they're working across all different markets, whether it be, hey, we've got a conference for band teachers, or we've got a religious conference, or we've got this basketball tournament, or we've got a youth volleyball, whatever it may be. Their job is strictly to pull in that business and steal it from others. And I'm highly competitive, as Emily knows. I want to win.
In a good way. In a good way.
I don't know. Sometimes I think it's not so good. But we're just going to leave that alone. But we're in competition with cities within the state and outside of the state. Yeah. So I'm highly competitive, and I'm like,
so how do we win?
Steal. So what's so great about it is we win. And what we've heard is we win because the community is affordable.
Yeah.
It's easy to get around, and the people are great.
Yeah.
And those are three things. Like, we take care of our clients when they get in here, and we make sure they have a good experience. We check in on them, and we do welcome baskets. We make sure that they know what restaurants are open and how they can navigate. And that's not common. Like, that's not always happening. So we run really off of the people and just the experience that we can provide on top of it.
Yeah.
And we're winning a lot more than I think we have in the past.
Yeah.
And we've got repeat business that's coming in. We're signing 2-3 year deals at this point. Partnering with people we've never partnered with. We're going to be working. We've got some stuff in the works with Hardscrabble. We've got things in the work with the convention center. We're working on things with Ben Guerin. Like, it is truly a community-wide focus, which I think sometimes people are like, you only focus on downtown. It's like, no. Like, we focus everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really do. And like, so much of the visitor experience is how the city makes you feel, right?
Yeah.
And that's such an important thing to remember, is like, everybody plays a part in that, right? So when we have visitors, I mean, everybody from the housekeeper, the restaurant owner, the waiter, the waitress, the resident, everybody plays a part in kind of curating these visitor experiences.
And I will tell you, and I'm going to jump ahead, because obviously you guys were totally prepared. Kudos. You might get a raise. I will let them know that you should. I'll do my part. But some of my best experiences, the community residents being the ambassador. We came in, my daughter and I came in fresh. We didn't know anybody. We have no family here. So we come in and we visit. It's rainy. It is. We came in on a dreary day. I don't know why. I picked the day that we did to visit, but we came in and we went over to Brick City with the boutique shopping, and walked in, and the guy was, hey, how are you doing? What can I help you with? Hey, we're just here visiting. Oh my gosh. Okay. So have you eaten yet? Let me give you recommendations. And immediately it was like, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah.
As a visitor, but also as somebody that's in charge of it, I'm like, that's what I want to see. Like, I want to see our residents saying, this is a fun place. Because it really is. We hear it time and time again from outsiders. Fort Smith is cool. And I think we take it for granted as residents, how cool it is, how nice it is. And we want to focus on all the negative. And that's not, please don't get me wrong, like Fort Smith is not an anomaly there. It's like that in every community. Residents tend to forget how good they actually have it. But yeah, I mean, we just walked in and I was like, okay, like I could get behind this. Like we've already got people that are welcoming. We've already got people that like want more people to come in and want to talk great. Went boutique shopping with her not too long ago and brand new. Hey, what brings you in? Like we just moved, like, because we just moved out of our rental and oh, well, where are you? Like, let me tell you great places that are by you. You should go. And I'm like, this is incredible. Like, absolutely great. Couldn't have asked for anything better. And it's just those little experiences that our visitors get because she had no idea that I was from here when she first started that conversation. So,
had very similar experience. I don't know about you, Josh, because
definitely
like we kind of came to Fort Smith around the same time. I guess you've been in the area for a couple years. And went to that Greek restaurant. What's it called? Paisi's?
Paisi's.
Oh, that place is so good.
Yeah, it was really good.
And we were actually thinking about moving to Alma or Chester or someplace like that. And I met a couple and their family in there. And they just started, to ask me, where are you from? What are you here for? And I was telling them, like, well, we're thinking about moving. And they were so friendly, exactly like what you were describing, wanted to tell us what to do, just made me feel really welcome and like homey. It just felt homey.
you feel like you're a part of the community right away.
Like you're already a neighbor and you're not even here yet. So that's one special thing I think about Fort Smith that
I agree.
don't always get everywhere.
No.
So, and then talking about kind of the negativity. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we have our challenges here as a city.
For sure.
Like you said,
I think
city.
every city does, right?
Yeah. What do you think those challenges are? And what do you think is happening to kind of solve these problems?
I think it through the lens of a couple of things. This is I found family. I hear a lot of stories of people coming back with their families. I moved with a 13-year-old at the time. And what does a teenage girl, she walks in and we came from Tulsa. So Tulsa's in our background. Durham, North Carolina is in our background. She wasn't old enough to know Jacksonville, North Carolina. So she's kind of been in bigger cities. So she's like, hey, well, where's that shop? What am I going to like? Typical teenage life. And I look at it from that angle and there's work being done to figure out like how to be accommodating for families, like how to make this a spot where our own residents can enjoy what's going on for kids, being a great example with what they're trying to build, but like what they're putting in the bakery district right now as a temporary exhibit. Spartan Adventure Park, we take it for granted. Trampoline parks are not in every community, and not a nice one like that that's then surrounded by other things. Our trail systems. I love the fact that the city is investing into the trail system. I love that Chaffee is pouring into our trail system. Why move to the natural state if you don't want to be outdoors? Like, so being able to go out and say, hey, it's friendly for bikes. If you are someone that can't, then you have access to bikes that are along our bike paths. But most of the time they're shaded and that's not always found.
Yeah.
The fact that you can bike the river, the river's a huge piece. And I love what's happening there with the Community School of Arts. And, obviously Fort Kids is going to potentially be going to their Marshall's museums right there. Like we're putting things there that highlight the fact that we can have an active riverfront.
Yeah.
And think about all the great spots if you travel that have really great riverfronts. And we're right on that turning point. And that's what makes me excited. I'm like, okay, like we're going to be up there here shortly with some of the greatest cities with great waterfronts. It's coming. And I think that that's a mixture of city development, but I also think that's private development. That's people like Benny Westfall. That's people like Gannon Cooper and other CBID and what they're doing. I think it's a culmination of those efforts. You know, a challenge we hear from visitors and from meeting planners, our homeless population. I don't laugh at the situation. I laugh sometimes because, again, you came from Austin, you come from a bigger city and you look at ours and it's like, it's really not that bad. Like I've not been approached and I walk the streets and do the things. And, you know, so I look at it in comparison with other cities that I've been into where it truly is like a massive problem. And I'm not diminishing ours at all. So I don't want that to be taken out of context, but I do put it back into context for people of, hey, you know, we're not in a city where they're full. We've had flashers, but like right on the road doing drugs in front of students for a conference and things like that. Like those are the stories that I know from being in a larger city.
Right.
So I look at that and I think, okay, but we've also got services that are happening, again, city efforts, nonprofit efforts, like people are really coming together to try and figure this piece out.
And the cool thing about that is the city, a lot of those nonprofit organizations, downtown stakeholders, a lot of people are getting together every month and talking about the homeless issue. And we're working together to find solutions. And those solutions are coming to fruition. Like we're seeing things happen. And that's because of collaboration. I don't think that happens in a lot of communities.
No. And I've been in communities. When I was in Tulsa, that was obviously one of the big ones. And, you know, we had talked to the team in Austin. We went and visited Denver about their problem. And you know, they did some things, but we also would look at it and was like, okay, it's a ring around downtown Denver. Like you literally were driving from the airport and you're like, homeless, 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 ring. And then all of a sudden nobody. It's like, that seems weird. But they didn't have a ton of that. Like, you know, it's not sitting there. So I agree with you. I love the fact that collaboration is really pivotal and getting us to a better spot. I don't think a solution where it's not going to be solved in its entirety. There will always be something around it. But I like that there's movement on it. And it truly is that collaborative effort.
Yeah. So you have mentioned, in just the short time we've been talking, you have mentioned several cities in which you've lived.
Yeah. How did you get
curious.
here?
I'm very curious because even as somebody who works with you, like I want to hear the story of how you got to Fort Smith. What brought you here?
I have a very diverse past. I make it sound way more interesting probably than what it is. I know. It's like obvious.
Tell us
I was
more.
never in jail, I promise.
Were you?
No. So I was born in Morehead City, North Carolina. So I was on the coastline, raised in Durham, North Carolina, and had an opportunity to play softball in my collegiate career. I have a lot of people that laugh. I did not want to stay in the state of North Carolina. You'll hear me talk about it now. I love North Carolina. Back then it was like, no, I don't want to be in my own state. Like I want to go experience something new. Like the traveler in me, like this job was always, I think, destined in me and I just didn't realize it. So I wanted to go explore something new. And out of my parents have 3 girls. Out of me, I was the middle child. I was the one that they knew, like, she's leaving, like she's gone. We just know it.
Prepare yourself.
Yeah, prepare yourself. Like, we'll keep the other 2 close by. Ashleigh's out. So I went and played softball at the University of Connecticut and spent 4 years up there doing, obviously, softball. Thought I wanted to be a sports psychologist. When you are playing a sport and you're dealing with your teammates going through their issues, you realize very quickly, like, maybe I don't want to do this for my life. So I struggled a little bit my freshman year trying to figure that out and got an internship work situation with the athletic department in marketing. So I somewhat know your language. It's been a while, but sometimes I delve a little bit too much in the marketing side when I know I need to get out of it. But worked in the marketing department and realized, like, oh, I really, really like this. I like impacting student athletes' lives without being tied to their success. I don't want to be a coach where I'm easily on the chopping block, but I like being able to impact their lives. Again, being a part of the memory making, watching a women's basketball team come out to a sold out stadium for the first time ever and at the University of Louisville and things like that. Like that's what I really loved.
Yeah.
So graduated from there, moved to Hattiesburg, Mississippi 2 weeks after Katrina hit to get a graduate assistantship at University of Southern Mississippi. And was there for a year. We did not focus on revenue. We did not focus on, it was really about rebuilding the community through our efforts, making sure that the student athlete experience was still quality, but then how do we give the community a chance to take a breath from all the destruction and be in a different world and rally around something else. And it like still makes me, and obviously North Carolina going through what they just recently and have gone through, with Hurricane Helene, you know, I worked women's soccer, was one of my sports. And, you know, we were doing commemorative events for one of their big boosters that died post Katrina, trying to get their lives back together.
Yeah.
And, you know, you really realize like it's all intertwined. Like it really is. Like we had athletes that were from up north and out, you know, deeper south, and they were impacted by this one individual within a community and his love and his passion for seeing women's soccer become something big. And so like just being a part of that, I was like, okay, like there's a bigger to all of this. I'm sorry, I like still get teary. But it's 1 year. So I leave, go to the University of Louisville. Great time at University of Louisville, work multiple championships, working with their collegiate program. Get a chance to go to College World Series with the men's baseball team, women's Final Four in St. Louis. We host a field hockey national championship. We host track and field regionals, like just a part of a lot of really in Big East. We were in the Big East at the time. A lot of Big East championships. Met my husband, now since divorced, but my husband, he moves us to Indiana University. So just right up the road into Bloomington. Get there, work some of their stuff, again, multiple at that time, and they're still Big Ten, but also NCAA championships. Having a kid changes you. So we have our daughter, and he's working in athletics. I'm working in athletics. She was maybe 3 months old, and we had a away football game. We were hosting it, but it was in Washington, D.C. So no family in Indiana. So I'm like, hey, caregiver, can she stay with you for 2 nights? It was my first time like leaving her. And I'm like, nope, can't do this. Like I'm out.
Yeah,
I got to be with family and I got to do the things. So break away a little bit and kind of do some couple of things. He decides to get out. We moved to Jacksonville, North Carolina. He works for the Marine Corps doing all marine sports. So he's actually an athletic trainer. So he's with sports teams traveling the country and internationally. I'm back home and I start running their sports commission, which was really my first kind of segue into all of this. We were hosting events. So we host football jamborees on the Marine Corps base, road races. We were doing lacrosse events, soccer. So it was really about sports tourism. Decide at that time, Durham, my hometown, was just starting their sports commission. And it was an opportunity for me to get us back into closer to family and give back to my hometown. So I started theirs and worked underneath their CVB, the umbrella there, had the sports commission just kind of underneath it. So worked there for 3 years, got a taste of the CVB life. And I was like, ooh, this is a lot of fun. I think I can do more and not just be the sports person my whole entire life. So, you know, I lucked out. Tulsa was hiring actually at the time they were just hiring a sports person. And I was like, okay, I think it might grow. Interview. It gets given to the guy that's there now, Joel Kester, who's phenomenal, came out of the Chicago market. But my boss at the time was like, hey, I think I want both. I mean, I'm very similar to him in that. I want it all. And that's what he's like, I want both of them. Like, how do I make this happen? So he moved the VP of sales over to VP of international sales. And I took over CVB and sports sales. And that was kind of my first step into it. Worst timing ever. I moved MLK Day of 2020.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
I can't.
2 weeks in, I'm having conversations with our sales team. I'm like, hey, so there's this thing happening over in China. Like, what are we going to do if it comes across the seas? And our bosses in the chamber, everybody's like, it's not coming. It's not coming. And I'm like, okay, don't talk about it anymore. And like, so I'm in like side rooms, like, okay, we still need to talk about it just in case. I'm like, we're still going to talk about it. And it hits, and, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, Tulsa was big on tourism. So, I mean, we had to lay off people, and my team was cut, and I took on a bunch of different roles. And at one point was the interim over while they were waiting to hire their new president and CEO. And unfortunately, I think some people might understand this. Like, you get a taste of running it, and it's hard to back away from that. Like it's like, okay, I can do this. Like you kind of get this feeling of like, I have that self-confidence now. Like this is something I can do. And Fort Smith was luckily just hiring at the right time. So small fact, it was between Dothan, Alabama and Fort Smith. I had two options. They came within a week of each other.
Wow.
And
so what put Fort Smith over the edge?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dothan, Alabama, great community, big in sports, did not have a convention center. So it was mainly going to be like running a sports commission.
Yeah.
And they were doing some development stuff, but they're a pathway to Panama City Beach. And when I came here, I was like, there's so many opportunities. Like the growth here can be so much more.
Yeah.
And I want to be a part of the growth.
Yeah.
I want to see things happen. I would love to see something built. I would love to see, us competing against Little Rock and in the bigger cities as a number 3 in population size. I'm like, why can't we punch our weight and be up there with a less budget? So the competitive spirit in me came out in full force.
You have
We can and we will.
Yeah.
You have a long background in sports.
Yes.
And so I love hearing how that has brought you to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that sports, you talked about opportunities, what are some of those sports tourism opportunities or things that could be happening within our community, things that are coming up or things that you're excited about or ideas that you have? We just want to hear it all.
Oh my gosh, all of it. Oh man, so much pressure.
Sorry, I'll break it up if you want me to, but
no, don't worry about it. Yeah, sports there's so many sports out there. I think there's still not even a total number of like, this is how many, whatever. I think the last count was there's over 400 some odd rights holders that are in our space that are just relocating sports in and out of markets. So when you look at that, it's like 400 opportunities. And then you look at some that have like multiple divisions underneath it. So the convention center is great. They're doing phenomenal work in cheer and dance. I don't think a lot of people know that. I actually have a really good friend that works in the sports space that his daughter's a dancer and she's up here like twice a year. So he's and he's coming out of the Austin market. He's like, all right, tell me like, where should we go eat now? So that's kind of fun to be a part of. I think what Fort Smith Junior Volleyball is doing with their big volleyball tournament is wonderful. I'd love to see that expansion. There's not kind of a spot in our region really for volleyball that's dedicated in with a space, a facility. I think we could grow a lot in basketball. I will totally lean into, you've got Calipari now right up the road with Arkansas and, him coming out of the Kentucky market, like it's going to change basketball for Arkansas. Whereas I think they've mainly been a football school. Like, okay, now you're bringing in somebody. Again, no shade at previous coaches, but you're bringing in somebody that's well known for basketball.
Right.
So I think the basketball is going to be a really great opportunity. And then obviously having 2 professional players that are out of this just over here in Oklahoma City. So seeing what we can do to kind of pair in on that. I think the trail system provides a lot of options for potential additional road races or cycling events. I think if we can get mobility plans and things like that, it'll also help with some of the cycling. And we play very well off of Northwest Arkansas and what's happening up in Bentonville, Acme, the Acme Park.
Oh yeah.
I think whatever happens there is going to be a game changer for the community, whether it be cycling. I'm secretly trying to see if we can get some outdoor climbing to complement our indoor climbing gym. Because that's a game changer.
So the Acme Brick Park, this is a property that the city has purchased that was the former Acme Brick property that could be transformed into an outdoor space. We don't even know yet, but it could be transformed into an outdoor space.
And what Sarah Duster and the city has have kind of done with this, in my mind, I look at it without the private dollars, but I look at it as like, could this be a gathering place situation from Tulsa? Could this be a Central Park, smaller version of New York City that now we're pushing right into the middle of our community?
Yeah.
And I was a part of some of the conversations as they were selecting, like, that's a generational project. Like, this is something that our community should be talking about, excited about, backing. Like, this is something for everybody.
Yeah.
And this is something that's going to help with workforce retention. This is something that's going to help just as a resident to be able to go and experience. This is visitation. Like, this is the impact of this is not even, I think, fully recognized at this point. So I hope that as they go through and the city's working through that process, everybody understands, like, we got to get this right. Like, this is not a let's phase it and kind of whatever. Like, we got to get this thing right because you can't go back sometimes. And this really could change the landscape for Fort Smith.
Yeah. And you also brought in a fishing tournament, right?
Yeah.
You've done things like that, which is something I wouldn't have thought of, previously.
Again, I mean, you're looking at the natural state. So, I joke, fishing makes sense. Okay, well, can we go after archery tournaments? Can we go after shooting events? Like, things that actually, like, we're not trying to put something that doesn't fit with us. We're not well equipped for wheelchair basketball. We're just not. We're not there yet. So why am I going to try and force that when I can go out and get a shooting event and it totally fits our market and who we are and our personality as a community? So we're looking at things like that. And then, grand schemes eventually kind of get to a point where we can build a complex. I mean, that's really, you talk about Acme. I think if we can get a complex built, that raises the bar and the standard of who we are as a community. It makes us competitive in the marketplace. It's not something that everybody has.
Like a complex for like volleyball and
like an indoor. So the last time I've actually been through 2 feasibility projects, one in Durham, one in Jacksonville. And we looked at outdoor versus indoor in both of those. And once you go indoor, it is an absolute game changer. You can host 20 plus different events versus, the baseball, softball, you can really only do like 4 or 5. Long fields, you're limited to about 9, depending on what the setup is. So, I mean, once you go indoor, it's like, okay, now I can do pickleball. I can do
year-round
pickleball.
Year-round stuff.
Year-round stuff. And, or, if we've got the FMS, if they want to host a military ball and not be at a convention center, it can go in an indoor facility.
It's true.
So, there's a lot of flex space there that I don't think we necessarily think of, but we can also use it for community usage, for pickup basketball, or it can be for training ground, whatever it may be. So.
I mean, and let's talk about youth sports, right? Like the trends for youth sports. I mean, it's crazy right now how much travel is happening for youth sports.
And I do it with my daughter.
How much money they're spending on traveling.
Yes.
Sports.
Yeah.
It's a market that we always said prior to COVID that it was recession proof.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not recession proof. You're going to have a drop off, but it is recession resistant. And I think COVID showed that. If it was an outdoor sport, my daughter was back on a softball field within three months, maybe less, because it was outdoor. We limited touch as much as we could and things like that. But we weren't going to deny our kids the opportunity to play.
Right.
In Tulsa, the very first event back after COVID and the pandemic, 3 months after, was a youth wrestling tournament. Like, tell me how that was even feasible. And we got approval, but we had record attendance. But it was because people were wanting to give their kids the opportunity for a sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
And now you look at it, it's like, hey, there's so many benefits to participating in kind of that group setting, whether it be athletics or hobby clubs or whatever it may be. And, you're not going to deny. I will cut a lot of things in my budget as long as my daughter has the opportunity and she can do what she wants to do within reason. But I want to give her that access. I will do whatever it takes to give her that access for her to achieve what she wants to achieve. And for her, she wants to play college softball. Okay, then I'm going to cut things. And that's a story that I think if you run across anybody, grandparents, whatever, that'll say, oh yeah, no, little Johnny and Susie, if they want to go, like, we're going to figure out a way to make it happen. And that's where communities like us, we benefit because we have the right facilities and we've got a really good setup. I mean, that is just money pouring in to the community.
Yeah.
And that's what we want.
So we've talked about like the professional stuff, about like the sales stuff, the meetings and the sports and everything. But what about like personal stuff? Like personally, what do you like to do in Fort Smith? Like, what would your perfect day look like?
Again, I've got a 14-year-old daughter who plays softball. So we are at DBAT fairly often so she can get in her pitching time and her hitting time. No, I think outside of that, we like going and doing kind of the boutique shopping, or we'll go into, Bookish, local bookstore and just tour around. We're at the parks. So we'll hike up. We've got a Labrador dog. And so we'll take Willow up to Devil's Den, or we'll go up to one of the state parks and kind of use that as let's just get away. Then we come back and we grab lunch. We'll grab coffees and stuff like that and just hang out. She loves having the little swing chairs at Fort Smith Coffee Company.
Yeah, those are great.
So that was, for us, like that's where we lived during the honors wreath lane, as we went in, got hot chocolate and did the whole thing before we went and volunteered our time.
Yeah.
And she loved it. She's a little bit of a foodie, so we're exploring still the food scene. And there's so many options here that I can say we haven't been through them all. It's going to take us probably a little bit longer than I originally even thought. So we do that side of it. And then, she's hanging out with friends and, getting a chance to experience small town football games, small town basketball games, like being there for the Rogers Avenue battle between the football teams. Like that was just a cool experience. And I mean, I come from cities that have strong sports, and like that was a whole different level. I was like, oh, so this is okay. We're here. So getting a chance to experience that, I think, has been a lot of fun. And then we'll sprinkle in some of the museums. So we'll go over to RAM, or, we'll head over and we'll just tour different art galleries and stuff. So it's pretty eclectic.
I think we have big city amenities, small town feel. And that's what I say a lot to people whenever I try to describe Fort Smith. I think you just said that really well. Like we still have the local sports scene. That's still a big thing around here, but we also have incredible restaurants for you to visit. We have different coffee places for you to visit. So there's just a lot to do here in Fort Smith too. So
there really is. And, we've talked about this before, how people tend to say, oh, there's nothing to do here. Like that's a response.
Please don't ever say that. And if you come across me, like don't ever.
No. So somebody does. So somebody says, oh, there's just nothing to do here. What do you say?
Yeah, what do you say back? Because I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
That's
you
usually
said this to the wrong person.
Yeah, I'm
do you know what my job is?
And I have to be like somewhat conscientious of it, because the local community shouldn't know the work that we do, because we're trying to attract outsiders in. So I have to like remember that of like, you're not supposed to see our advertising. You're not supposed to get our Facebook ads and stuff like that. They're not intended for you. But I've had a couple of people that are like, there's just nothing to do. Actually, my neighbor at one point was like, there's just nothing to do here. And she knew exactly what I did. But again, she's coming out of the Dallas market, and she knew I was coming out of Tulsa. So I think she thought there was going to be this commiseration of like
same
two
with
big
Austin.
cities. Yeah.
I get that
like
really too.
You're from a big city too. Like we should be able to talk about like how bad it is here. And I looked at her and I was like, okay, but what are you interested in? That's usually my first, what are you interested in? And she's like, well, I'm used to doing the shopping and the food scene. Okay, well, what type of shopping? Well, I like the boutiques. Okay, well, have you looked at this? And like, I'm like rattling off places. No, I didn't know that those existed. I'm like, you should probably go. Like, they're super cute. Like the same stuff I find there is what I was seeing in Tulsa. Food stuff will be one that hits. I'm like, okay, well, what are you going after? Well, I want really good sushi. And I'm like, okay, have you tried, and this is like literally our favorite place to eat, have you tried Ninja?
Oh, I love Ninja.
And they
have ramen too.
They have ramen too.
Yeah.
Their hibachi is like their hibachi is like what we had in Durham, and it was the only hibachi my daughter would eat. So she didn't eat hibachi in Tulsa because it did not live up to Conky standards. We get like literally, this is my daughter. Then we get here and she's like, fine, I'll try it. And she eats it. And she's like, Mom, this is Conky. Like, this is Durham. And I'm like, but it's in Fort Smith.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about those things. I'm like, you've got Fuji and you've got these really great places. I'll hear people talk about bars, which I will say, I need to hit up the bar scene. I just need someone to go with me.
I'll go with you.
I don't think my 14-year-old's the wing person I need.
Probably not for the bar scene.
I may not win Mom of the Year award on that one. But like I hear people talk about that and I'm like, we've got this really cool like lounge. Yes, you could still smoke in some of them, but like that's also kind of like just a throwback. Like
Yeah. Well, in 906 Cocktail and Cigar Lounge, like have you been there?
Yeah, their filtration system's insane.
Yeah.
It's really good.
You can smell, it smells like cigars, but it's not at all smoky.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to any type of smoke like that. And like,
Did not know that.
yeah, I mean, they have really invested in that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you've got that and then you can, they've got things right by campus. I love to go dancing. I'm like, I just need a wing person to go with me so that I can hit up the Electric Cowboy and stuff like that. There may be a team outing here shortly.
Oh, that could be fun. Okay.
But yeah, so
I don't think I'm not on.
Come on, Josh, you're on our team. Yes, you are.
You don't want to see me dance.
Now I really do that.
But we do.
I promise. It's yeah.
No, you're coming. But yeah, so that's typically my response is, what are you interested in? And that's when I'm able to go through and start like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about that? What about our live music scene and going to Temple Live or Majestic or, the bars or La Huerta. Like there's so many options there. So my first, after I kind of laugh and semi get annoyed and try and calm my face down, then my response is, what are you interested in?
Yeah. And I mean, what you're talking about is really one of the main reasons we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Because we want to combat that. We want people to know there is a lot going on in Fort Smith. This is how you can get involved with it.
Yeah, that's true. And just highlight the diversity of things too. Because I think a lot of times when people think of Fort Smith, they think of the history and they think of like the Wild West and all this stuff. And that is a huge part of who we are and our heritage. And we embrace that, right? And we own it. But there's also a lot of other stuff going on that we have, due to the amazing residents who have been here, and who have invested in the city and in growing these events. And
our past has shaped who we are now. I mean, having Hurricane Katrina, residents and having them come through and relocating here, and they're bringing, that deep South culture, whether it be through food or whatever, like having them come through, having Cuban refugees, having Vietnamese, they're bringing their cultures into Fort Smith, and we benefit by having authentic food options, authentic cultural events that we can attend. Like that's stuff that you don't always get.
That's true.
So, I think sometimes I know I forget, and I have to kind of remind myself, like, be thankful for the past that Fort Smith has, because it really has given us this opportunity to market what we get to market now.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It has definitely influenced who we are today. And I think it's important too to just honor the residents too. I mean, we focus a lot on travel and getting visitors in and everything, but like Fort Smith is a great place to live and work and visit because of the residents, right? And because, we have people pouring into the city and, doing these amazing initiatives for mobility and walkability and this work that people are doing to expand the trails and restaurants,
safety programs.
So,
and I mean, the safety aspect of this city is something I don't think we tout enough. And I hear a lot from visitors that are like, I felt safe.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, good. Like that's how it should be. Again, I'm coming from Durham, and my dad was a former police officer. There was a time where my dad would joke, like, I would shoot you before someone shot you in downtown Durham as you were growing up, because that's how bad, like they had the highest crime rate in the state of North Carolina, so it's changed. But like, I look at that and I'm like, there are a lot of cities that we go into or conferences that are alerting their attendees of, we know that you don't feel safe. And it's like, why is that even something?
Right.
Yeah.
But I know that cities have to combat that. And I love that we don't. Like there's never been a question by anybody, am I going to be safe? And I think we take that for granted when you think about And again, Portland's a great place. Portland does not have a great reputation on safety. You think of New York, you think of these big cities, but even smaller ones, Durham back in the day that didn't have a great reputation for being safe. And I'm like, okay, check that box. I'm thankful that, Chief Baker does such a great job with his team and we have this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and for talking about all the awesome things that are happening in our city, some things that are coming up. I'm excited for the future. I know that you're excited for the future. Yes. And I'm glad that we get to do this together.
Yeah.
So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody has questions, I know I've talked about the fact that you shouldn't see what we're doing. And it truly is like you shouldn't see it. But if you're interested in seeing what we're doing, hearing more about what marketing plans, who we're going after, things like that, come in and talk to us. Go to our website. It's brand new, discoverfortsmith.com. Check our social media out. It typically will have kind of a lot of what we're pushing. But yeah, if there are ever any questions and you're just interested in learning what we do and why we do it, like come in and visit us. And we are more than happy to share the good word and hope that you're going to do the same exact thing. So